Hey folks, Winston for Carbide 3D here. When we first began designing the Shapeoko Pro, we realized we had a chance to completely rethink how our machines are built and how we could improve the user experience. Not only did we end up making a dramatically stronger machine with the Pro, but we also made it markedly simpler to put together. Compared to the original Shapeoko 3, which was already one of the most user-friendly CNC kits on the market, we're expecting the total setup time to be cut in half. The Shapeoko Pro is a machine that truly goes together in hours, not days. In this video, we'll be walking you through the steps to put together the biggest Shapeoko Pro we have, the XXL. The steps for assembling smaller machines will be much the same, except that the sizes and/or quantities of components may differ. The general process, however, will remain unchanged. When you get your Shapeoko Pro, it will arrive in two carefully designed packages. Though you may be tempted to rip open all the boxes and pull everything out, resist the urge. The individual boxes in the shipping packaging are actually self-contained steps for assembling the Shapeoko Pro. This lets you focus on one thing at a time and reduces workspace clutter. I'll get started by opening the first of two shipping boxes for the XXL Pro kit. Inside, you'll find the parts you need to complete steps 1 through 4. The first step is to lay out the frame of the Shapeoko Pro. In this box, you'll find machined extrusions, sheet metal drag chain side supports, hardware, and some zip ties, plus the tools you'll need for assembly. These extruded cross members form the foundation for the Pro. Lay them out about a foot apart on your workbench with the standoffs facing upwards. The sheet metal panels that also came in this box are the wings that will support the Y-axis drag chains. There are 4 small threaded holes in each panel. The 2 that are spaced closely together are where the drag chain will terminate. The single holes should be towards the rear of the machine. These are for zip tie anchors that you can use for cable management. Screw these wings to the outer edges of the table cross members, but keep the button head cap screws loose. I like to tighten them and then back off by about a quarter turn. These drag chain wings will roughly establish the spacing between the cross members from front to back, but we don't want to lock in the position of these frame components until we've squared the machine in a later step. Step 2 is to attach the Y-axis rails. In this box, you'll find aluminum extrusions with linear rails attached, as well as some hardware. Installed on the Y-axis rails are socket head screws meant for holding the linear bearing blocks and carrier plate in place during transit. Leave these installed for now. The rail with wiring running through it should be on the right side of the machine. The linear rails will face outwards. These Y-axis rails are secured to standoffs on the cross members with custom shoulder bolts. Linking the Y-axis extrusions to the table in this manner allows the components to strengthen each other, eliminating sag in both the table and the rails. Attach the rails to the standoffs with the shoulder bolts, but leave them loose by about a quarter turn. Again, squaring the machine will come later. We don't want to lock in the shape of the frame just yet. Step 3 is to attach the end plates to the Y-axis rails. The end plate with the power button and bit setter goes on the front right corner. The end plate with a proximity switch attached to it is for the back right corner. Each end plate is secured with 4 screws, and feel free to fully tighten these down. On the front right end plate, make sure you plug in the power switch and the bit setter into their respective extension cables before you seal up the Y-axis rail. Step 4 is to attach the X-axis gantry to the machine. This is one of the more involved steps in the assembly process. Set the gantry on the Y-axis rails so that the gantry's end plates are resting on the linear bearing blocks. You may need to wiggle the Y-axis rails a little bit if they happen to be sitting too close together. This is why we left everything loose in steps 1 and 2. Once the gantry is in place, use 3 screws on either side to secure the gantry to the Y-axis carrier plates. The X-axis gantry has a drag chain support which can be installed now. This attaches to the top of the gantry with countersunk M3 fasteners. With the gantry installed, we can then run the GT2 belts for the Y-axis. Using the belt anchors, fasten one side of a belt to an end plate. Then feed the free end of that belt under the idler pulleys and use a small hex key to fish the belt up and over the GT2 pulley on the stepper motor shaft. On the opposite end plate, feed through just enough GT2 belt so that the belt anchor barely engages with the included M5 fastener. Maintain downward pressure on the anchor until it's firmly pulled against the end plate, otherwise the belt may loosen and slip through the anchor. One word of warning here, do not substitute your own M5 socket head screw in this step. We only want to pull the belt anchor about 2 to 3 millimeters. If you use a longer bolt, you may overstretch the belt and/or damage the stepper motor. Having installed the gantry, we've forced the two Y rails into perfect alignment. After removing the shipping bolts, we can slide the gantry all the way forward or backward and adjust the squareness of the frame so that the end plates touch both sides of the gantry at the same time. Moving front to back and sliding the gantry as you go, you can tighten down the shoulder bolts holding the Y rails to the frame. This will lock in the squareness of the structure so that the frame will always be square to the gantry. At this time, you can also fully tighten the screws holding on the drag chain support wings. Now it's time to open up the second shipping box. Step 5 is to attach the Z-axis to the gantry. In this box you'll find the Z-axis assembly, which is basically a modified Z+, the X-axis stepper motor, the X-axis belt, and additional hardware. There are 4 screws that secure the Z-axis to the X-axis carrier plate. Once this is installed, you can install the X-axis GT2 belt and stepper motor. The stepper motor should be installed after you fish the GT2 belt through the idler pulleys, since there's no way to do this once the stepper motor is installed. After the GT2 belt has been run through the XZ carriage assembly and the stepper motor is secure, you can finish tensioning the belt. Step 6 is to install the drag chains for the stepper motors and homing switches. There are 2 drag chains in this box that come pre-run with the necessary cables. The longer one with 3 cables is for the X-axis, the shorter drag chain will go on the Y-axis. Before we can attach the drag chain to the gantry though, we need to install some mounting brackets. On the X-axis there's an L-shaped bracket that attaches to the back of the Z-axis carriage plate. It should be installed on the left side of the carriage since the drag chain will go out the left first before wrapping around and terminating on the right side of the machine. When you install this drag chain, take note of the gender of the connectors. The stepper motor connector will only plug into the extension cable one way. On that right side, there is a Z-shaped bracket for handling the transition of the wiring bundle from X to Y. This bracket is installed by removing the rearmost 2 screws holding the X rail in place and bolting in the bracket. There are 2 holes at the top of this bracket for anchoring the X-axis drag chain, and there are 2 more holes at the bottom for anchoring the Y-axis drag chain, which hangs underneath the bracket. You may find it easier to attach this transition bracket to the Y-axis drag chain before mounting it to the gantry so that you're not trying to do everything upside down. And especially if you're installing this machine on the floor, you probably won't be able to crane your neck to look at what you're doing from below, so keep this option in mind. Note that the cables in the Y-axis drag chain should exit before the end of the drag chain. This is to eliminate the possibility of them getting pinched against the rear end plate. The other end of the Y-axis drag chain connects to the black support panel that we installed in step 1. When you have all the components installed, you can hook up all the connectors, which are labeled. And don't forget to plug in the left Y-axis motor. Step 7 is to install the router and its mounts and drag chains. In addition to those components, you'll also find an adhesive zip tie anchor in case you want to do some cable management beyond what's on the machine itself. First up, the router mount. The Shapeoko Pro uses a new 65mm mount that attaches to the Z-axis carriage plate with 4 screws. There are 2 M6s at the top and 2 M5s at the bottom corners. These screws are independent from the ones used for clamping the mount shut, which means you can tram the mount without loosening your router or spindle. You can mount the router now or later. I'm going to do it later so I can keep as much slack in the power cord while I deal with the drag chains. For the X-axis drag chain, there is an L-shaped bracket like we installed in the previous step, except longer. This one holds the drag chain slightly further back so it doesn't interfere with the stepper and homing switch drag chain. Install it on the right side of the Z-axis or left if you're looking at it from behind. And on the left side of the gantry, you should install a Z-shaped transition bracket. You'll need to run the router's power cord through 2 drag chains. The easiest way to open up these drag chains is to pry the cover off each segment at one side of the link. Don't try and pry it open in the middle. Lay the power cord through the open drag chain and then snap the links closed. Run the power cord for the router through both the X and Y axis drag chains. On the Y axis drag chain, you should remove one of the linkage covers and the tailpiece so that you can pass the power cord out through the side of the drag chain before the end. To remove the tail segment on the drag chain, use a thin flathead screwdriver or a pry tool to create room to separate the links. Again, this is to eliminate the risk of the power cord getting pinched against the end plate when the gantry slides backwards. The Carbide compact router comes with an extra long power cord specifically for use on larger CNCs like the XXL. If you didn't purchase one with the machine, you may need to use an extension cord to power your router. Alright, back to the router mount. If your mount is a little too snug for the router, the center hole in the mount is for a grub screw. This will push the 2 sides of the router mount apart, creating a fraction of a millimeter of extra clearance and sparing you the angst of using a screwdriver to pry apart the mount and damaging the anodized finish. Once the router is seated in the mount, be sure to back out the grub screw before using the 2 M6 screws to tighten the mount. Otherwise, that grub screw will interfere with the clamping action of the mount. You should remove and set aside that grub screw until the next time you need to adjust the spindle, as it may rattle loose during machining and be lost forever to the ether or your dust collector. Step 8 is the hybrid table, and this is the heaviest box by far. In this box will be aluminum extrusions, MDF slats, plastic T-slot covers, and hardware. The first thing to do is to lay out the plastic strips in the machine channels in the frame. Secure them with button head cap screws. These strips aren't absolutely necessary, but they will save you from dropping a wrench or end mill under your hybrid table. The MDF slats for the hybrid table are nestled in the aluminum extrusions for protection during shipping, but they won't be necessary just yet. Set the MDF aside and lay out the aluminum extrusions across the frame going front to back. Use the countersunk hardware included in the box to fasten the extrusions to the frame. If you opt to use power tools for this step, make sure you set the clutch to a lower setting. Because these screws are so short, it is very easy to cross-thread the holes. If you use an impact driver here, there is a high risk of you stripping a hole. When in doubt, back out the screw and try again, or do it by hand. Another recommendation is to initially install fasteners in 2 holes as far apart as possible or practical, since these countersunk screws will try to influence the alignment of the extrusions. Putting in 2 screws as far apart as possible will bring the rest of the holes in the extrusion into alignment with the frame. When you're done, torque down the countersunk screws by hand. Now you can throw the MDF slats onto the hybrid table and secure them with socket head screws. Step 9 is to install the electronics and apply the finishing touches. The electronics enclosure goes on the right side of the machine with power and USB connectors pointing backwards. But before we can do that, we need to install standoffs on the Y-axis rail. The standoffs should be screwed into the 2nd and 5th threaded holes if you're counting from the back. After you get the controller enclosure installed, there is a green grounding wire that should attach to the rail with a machine screw. Orient the crimped terminal so that the wire runs more or less downwards away from the linear rail and moving parts of the machine. Now you can plug in the stepper motors and switches into the controller. You'll have 1 bit setter, 3 homing switches, and 4 stepper motors to connect. The left Y-axis stepper motor should go into the Y1 connector on the board. If you ever find that your motors are going backwards in the Y-axis, swap the Y1 and Y2 connectors. And then, the most important step in the assembly process is letting the world know that this is your machine. Sign the Shapeoko badge and affix it proudly to your machine using firm pressure and holding it for a couple seconds to ensure that the adhesive is activated. And at this point, the machine is mechanically ready to run. But before you do anything, you should flash the appropriate settings to your controller and configure Carbide motion correctly for your machine. Plug in the power adapter and the USB cable, turn on the machine, and in Carbide motion on your computer, hit connect, but don't hit initialize just yet. We don't want the Shapeoko to start moving. Now go to the settings panel and hit send configuration data. Select Shapeoko Pro and wait a couple seconds for Carbide motion to transmit the necessary parameters to the Shapeoko. Next, in the Travel Dimensions section of settings, hit the Load Defaults button, then select Shapeoko Pro XXL. Hit OK on the pop-up and then hit OK on the settings panel. The travel dimensions will not be saved unless you hit OK on the bottom right corner. Now you can home the machine and start jogging it around. Before you start cutting though, you'll probably want to set up the bit setter for use since that's one of the biggest convenience features on this machine. Go into the jogging interface and position the machine so that the router is just above the bit setter button, then go back into the settings menu. If you get a pop-up about the 0 position not being set yet, just ignore that warning. It doesn't matter right now because we're not machining anything. In Settings, select the checkbox to enable the use of the bit setter and then hit Use Current Location. Carbide motion will then ask you to reinitialize the machine and measure a tool, and once that happens, you are ready to go. There are of course plenty more things you can do to make your life easier with the Shapeoko. Setting up dust collection is a great idea, especially with Sweepy 2.0, which we are including with the Pro. You can also opt to get fancy with your cable management. But ultimately, you should just get out there and start making some chips. We made the assembly process as straightforward as possible so that you could get to making projects quickly. If you run into any issues setting up your CNC, reach out to our support team. We're always here to help. And don't forget, we have our 30-day mistakes are on us policy. If you accidentally crash your machine or have some other mishap and end up breaking something on the CNC, we will send you out the parts to fix it. We want you to be able to approach using our machines with confidence and without worry. We hope you guys enjoy using the Shapeoko Pro. Until next time, good luck and have fun machining, folks.